So, if you're one of the millions of people who play table tennis, especially on that competitive amateur circuit, you know this feeling.
Oh, absolutely. That level where everyone knows the strokes, but the game is won and lost on deception.
Exactly. And you know this exact frustration. You're standing there, you're trying to deliver that perfect short serve, the one that just, kisses the net, but is absolutely loaded with side spin.
It's the ultimate high-risk, high-reward play, isn't it?
Yeah.
You want it to hug the net so your opponent can't attack it.
Right.
But you also need so much spin on it that when they try to push it or flick it back, the ball just reacts explosively, goes haywire.
And what happens when the average player, when you try this, you go for that heavy spin,
Yeah.
and the ball just sails straight off the end of the table?
Way too long. An easy attack.
Or the opposite. You manage to keep it short by just lightly touching the ball, but then there's zero spin. You basically just handed them the point.
And that problem, which our source material gets into right away, is that most amateurs confuse sheer effort with focused force.
Yeah.
They just can't get that combination of a short serve and overwhelming side spin.
So our mission for this deep dive is to crack that code. We're looking at a specific coaching philosophy that experts call the inch power serve.
Or, for those who've heard the original term, Sukman Takken. It's all about getting maximum spin with minimum visible effort.
Yeah, we've got some very technical coaching material here. It's all designed to give you that deceptive edge.
And we have to start right at the source of the failure, which is, well, it's how people are using their arms, the big muscles.
Okay, let's unpack that. The core mechanics. I mean, we always associate power with big movements, right?
Yeah.
The shoulder, the bicep.
Of course.
So what's so wrong with using those for a short serve?
The technical flaw is that if you rely on your upper arm or even your whole forearm to generate that power, that movement, no matter how quick you think it is, introduces too much forward momentum.
Yeah.
The ball will just inevitably travel too far. It doesn't matter how lightly you feel you touched it. Think of it like a pendulum. A bigger arc means more travel distance.
And it's not just about the distance, is it? That big sweeping movement,
Yeah,
it creates the wrong kind of friction.
precisely. A long sweep gives you slow, diffuse friction. The force is all spread out. We need the exact opposite of that.
We need fast, concentrated friction, delivered in a microsecond.
Yes. And the way to get there, our sources have this fantastic analogy. It's the pivot analogy.
Okay, lay it on us.
So you have to rethink where your center of power is. Imagine a hinge system in your arm. Your upper arm is the main pivot. The forearm is the secondary one.
And the wrist and fingers.
That's your tertiary pivot point. In a normal attacking stroke, you use all three, one after the other.
But for this serve, the inch power serve, we completely flip that script.
We do. The goal is to lock down those first two pivots, the upper arm and the forearm. They should not be contributing any forward momentum. They're just for positioning.
So the whole movement has to be super tight, super controlled.
And the fingers and wrist become solely responsible for generating all of that controlled force for friction.
Wait, okay. If you lock down the big muscles, how do you keep the stroke from feeling, I don't know, completely unnatural or causing strain?
That's a great question. The movement is so compact that strain isn't really the main issue as long as you stay loose in the shoulder and elbow,
Right.
even if they aren't driving.
I see.
The real difficulty is retraining your brain. You have to decouple that instinct that says long movement equals spin.
So what we're asking you, the listener, to do is use the tiny, fast twitch muscles, the ones in your hand and wrist.
The dexterity muscles
Yeah.
to create the power.
So the actionable takeaway here is to try this. Lock your upper arm and forearm. Just let the micro movements of your fingers and wrists generate that spin. The promise is that this compact motion immediately gets rid of those forces that make the ball fly long.
You're limiting the swing to just an inch, and that's what limits the forward speed.
And that leads us perfectly into this idea of the spin paradox. It's so counterintuitive.
It really is. That the most deceptive, spin-heavy serves often come from the most delicate-looking motions.
Right. Why is it that the serves that look so powerful often have basically nothing on them, while these tiny little flicks have explosive spin?
This is where we get into the idea of hidden power or deceptive power. This is where the magic happens.
So the opponent is watching the big muscle.
They're looking for a sign of force, but the real explosive spin is happening deep inside that kinetic chain, right at that tertiary pivot point.
And how do you actually generate that explosive force with just your fingers? The analogy in the material is it's perfect. They say it's like the energy you need to snap your fingers.
That's it. That analogy perfectly captures it. It's not a sweep. It's not a push. It's an instantaneous, concentrated burst of power delivered by the fingers at the exact moment of contact.
So if you're practicing this, what should that snap feel like? Does it sound different?
Absolutely. When you use your arm, you get a kind of dull, drawn-out brushing feeling. That's the slow friction. But when you do the snap correctly with your fingers, you should feel a very sharp, almost metallic contact, like a concise thwack or a fast sis sound. That's the sound of fast, focused friction.
The faster the friction, the stronger the spin. It's about the acceleration over that tiny distance.
Yes. So the arm swing, if there is one, is purely for disguise, for show. The power core is that micro explosion from the fingers and wrist, right on the ball.
If you can master that internal power, you've unlocked the tactical threat.
Exactly. And once you have that technique down, then you can start thinking about the strategy. And this kind of spin mastery, it's not just about winning one point. It's about changing the whole psychological dynamic of the game.
Which brings us to this idea of spin difference. Why isn't it enough to just have some spin? Why does it have to be maximum spin?
Because the goal isn't just to make the ball curve. The goal is to make your opponent afraid. Genuinely afraid of both your side spin underspin and your side spin topspin.
If they fear both equally, they hesitate.
And hesitation at this speed, it's almost always an error.
The sources are really clear on this. The tactical benefit comes from how severe the ball's reaction is.
We want what's called a pop-up effect.
Yeah.
Imagine you serve a side spin, topspin that looks identical to your underspin.
Okay.
But the upward spin component is so massive that when your opponent tries to push it short, the ball just pops straight up. It floats. And you get an easy smash. That's the dream scenario.
So you want them to try the same return technique and get two radically different results.
Radically different. The big problem at the amateur level is the half spin serve, where all your serves have this kind of moderate similar spin.
Predictable.
Very. The opponent just adapts one return technique and they've neutralized your entire game.
So what kind of spin difference are we talking about here? What's needed to really force that error?
It has to be immense. The source material suggests thinking of it like a ratio, maybe 1 versus 100.
Wow, okay. 1 versus 100.
The difference in spin magnitude between your heavy underspin and your heavy topspin has to be so great that they just can't use the same motion to return it. If the spin differential is huge, the serve is a terrifying tactical threat.
It's the differential, not just the disguise, that wins the point. That's a huge takeaway. Okay, let's get into the nuts and bolts. How do we generate that terrifying side spin underspin?
Right, so we know the power comes from the fingers and wrist. But the first hurdle is just the contact angle. A lot of players fail here.
They brush too far under the ball.
Exactly. If you only contact the back, you get some underspin, but very little side spin. The racket has to brush the side of the ball first, then add the underspin component with that rapid wrist snap.
Okay, that makes sense.
And here's the technical rule that a lot of players find surprising. It's about the contact point on your racket. For maximum spin, you have to make contact on the bottom half of the rubber.
The bottom half, that feels counterintuitive. Why there?
Because if you hit the ball in the upper half, it means your swing arc has already finished. It's already decelerating. You've missed the friction zone. You need to contact the ball when your acceleration is at its peak. And that happens as the racket is moving fastest, which is typically in that bottom quadrant of the swing.
And the sources give a very specific way to make sure you hit that low contact point. It's all in the wrist setup.
It is. This is critical. As the ball is dropping, your wrist has to stay loaded. That means it's open and drawn backward.
In the original notes, they call it ingras al vamo, open and drawn back. It's a sign that your snapping mechanism is cocked and ready.
Yes. If your wrist is already closed or snapped forward before you even hit the ball, the impact will always be on the middle or upper half of the racket face. It means you fired too early.
You have to maintain that loaded wrist, contact the ball, and then deliver that explosive acceleration.
Exactly.
How can you check this if you don't have a coach standing there?
Couple of ways. First, just watch the ball's flight path. A weak serve floats more. But the more definitive way is to check the mark the ball leaves on your rubber.
Oh, interesting.
If that little white mark is always in the upper half, you know you're missing out on crucial friction. You have to practice until that mark drops closer to the bottom edge of the paddle.
That low contact point.
Yeah.
The focused finger force. It all brings us back to that main idea, the inch power in motion.
Right. This is the combination of everything. We have the power source, the fingers, we have the contact point, the bottom half. Now it's about the movement distance.
So, long sweeping cut or short, sharp cut for maximum spin.
It is definitively the short, sharp cut. A long, big swing, even if you try to use your fingers, just creates unfocused, diffuse friction. The energy is spread out over too much time.
So the whole brushing motion for either topspin or underspin has to be incredibly compact. That is the physical manifestation of inch power.
Generating immense force over a tiny physical distance. Literally an inch or two of travel right near the ball.
The coaching advice is pretty stark on this.
It is. Stop bringing your racket way up higher, too far back. That just encourages using the big muscles. Keep the contact point close to your body and just accelerate sharply over that super short distance.
In other words, the flashy windup doesn't matter. It's the velocity of the rubber relative to the ball over that tiny fraction of an inch that creates the spin.
That concentration is the definition of inch power. And this is why it's so liberating. All the other stuff you see pros do, the huge follow-through, the deception, that's all supplementary.
It's secondary.
The core principle is creating that explosive force over a single inch. If you stretch the movement out, it's not inch power anymore.
That was an incredible deep dive into the mechanics. So to wrap this up, to give you something solid to take to the table, there are two non-negotiable concepts here.
First, you have to shift your power center. You have to abandon the big arm pivots and focus entirely on that explosive, instantaneous force from only the fingers and wrist.
That's what stops the ball from flying long. And
Second, you have to physically stick to the inch power principle. Keep the brushing motion incredibly compact. That's what maximizes the friction and creates that immense spin difference, that 1-to-100 threat ratio.
master those two, and you stop just touching the ball and you start generating terrifying spin.
That's the goal.
Now, here's a final thought for you to chew on, based on what we reviewed. The source material hammered this point home. The serve's effectiveness is all about the massive difference in spin, not the deceptive swing itself. So if we accept that, if the physical fakes are just auxiliary, what psychological effect does the opponent's expectation of deception play? The idea that you must be hiding something, could that alone be what makes them misjudge the spin, even before the ball crosses the net?
That's a great question. The mere appearance of a complex motion might sow just enough doubt.
Something to think about next time you're at the service line.
And just one last fun footnote from the coaching material. The instructor noted something surprising about the current amateur trends. Yeah, they said that even though this is really technical stuff, lately they've been seeing more female than male fans engaging with and discussing these high-level tactics. The deep dive community is growing and getting more diverse.
That's a great sign for the sport.